in Buckley. Hello, good morning to those that we're recording it for. Is it live or we? It was now live. Okay, well, welcome and welcome to the people here. Um, just had the realization that because of the Unitarian Society is why I'm here. Wendy Jerome got me involved in the Funerals Consumers Alliance of Minnesota, which we have housed here for years. And so a break off from that, I was able to meet people like Ann who are working on a conservation natural burial site. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but just to get going, there's the one question, Nick, that we are going to address, that you buried somebody recently and they required a cement vault. So that's something I think that's really important to discuss, how we can empower ourselves when it comes, or with our friends or family when it comes time for burial. So thank you again for coming today. I find it very interesting subject. Ann and I joke about how we could talk about death for hours. So, as you all know, though, I've been hugging trees my whole life and been very involved in climate change, and I think that this is a really important piece to that. At what time? Okay, thank you for coming, the climate change justice people here. So there's a growing national movement on this. We're not just lone wolves out there, and there's more information online about the Natural Consumers Alliance, that's my Funeral Consumers Alliance, the Natural Burial Network Conservation Burial. Let's see, so you've probably heard of human composting, the pods, the memorial forests, mushroom suits. That's the one I love. We're not going to talk about those things today. We could certainly later, if you want, talk about them. But today our focus is going to be on the natural burial options. So, and we'll respond to questions as we go. Let me have Ann introduce herself, but we will really try to keep us on track, Catherine, if you can, because I want to make sure we get through the presentation.
And just so you're not worried, Jane said we could talk about this for hours, but we're not going to. We're going to, hopefully we'll aim to end by 12:40 so we can have questions and answers so that when the folks leave, okay, we'll have a little time. So I'm Ann. I am a funeral celebrant. I'm a fellow seeker. I am a caregiver for the elders in my life. I am a social worker by trade and a worm composter and a gardener. I compost a lot of different things, actually. Gina and I share that in common. But I have worms in the basement, compost in the backyard, and all that kind of stuff. So I come to this organically, let's say. So we want to just start out by just recognizing that all land is sacred. And our land acknowledgement is in process. So this is a simple statement to acknowledge that the Twin Cities is indeed built on Minnesota Makoche, which is the ancestral and contemporary lands of the Wapekut Dakota people. We honor Dakota lifeways and their deep connections to the land and waters, and we are committed to educating ourselves. And we acknowledge the oppression and injustices that have taken this land from these people. We are working as well to create an action plan with accountability because we know that just saying that doesn't really mean anything. So as we start today, we're going to show a short video clip. You want to say anything about that, Jean, and then I'll press go?
It's from Canada. It mentions a lot of Ontario references, but I just think it's a good overall thing of what we're talking about here. So is it ready to go? Oh, you're having it right here then.
If we told you your death could protect the earth and nurture new life, would you believe it?
Is that okay? A little louder?
With natural burial,
I can't make it go louder here.
natural burial is one of the most
I'm at my
profound
max.
ways of caring for our dead.
It's a system thing. Oops.
Without the use of chemical embalming, we are laid to rest in a biodegradable casket or wrapped in a shroud, and our body contributes to the earth's renewal.
There you go. Thanks.
Natural burial grounds aren't at all like modern cemeteries. Rather than a manicured lawn with rows of tombstones, imagine a quiet forest or a wild meadow. Graves are marked by simple stones, native plants, or a communal dedication. However commemorated, the location of every grave is recorded. The people who run natural burial grounds ensure the land is restored and protected in its natural ecosystem. You might think, isn't cremation eco-friendly? Not at all. The body is incinerated at about 800 degrees Celsius for 2 hours, and carbon dioxide is emitted into the atmosphere. You might worry that scavengers will dig us up. We are buried too deep for scavengers. We feed the soil, not the wildlife. Nor do we harm the water. Just like modern cemeteries, natural burial grounds are regulated. We're often asked if natural burial is legal. Absolutely. Before funerals became commercialized, natural burial was the way many of our ancestors cared for their dead, and to this day, several faiths uphold the tradition. At natural burial grounds, we're invited to participate in the ceremony by laying the body to rest, filling in the grave, and decorating it. One guest wrote, "Everyone who attended has stated a desire to be buried here. The whole experience was perfect in every way." With nature as our teacher, being in its midst helps us see death as part of life. There is solace in knowing our loved one's last act is giving back to the earth. Today there are hundreds of natural burial grounds worldwide, started by people with compassion for the planet and the families they serve. In Tennessee, Larkspur Conservation spans 112 acres of diverse forest and meadow. Every burial is an act of healing. In one of England's national parks is South Downs Natural Burial Site, where each grave is dug by hand to minimize environmental impact and to respect the area's tranquility. In BC, Catherine Valentine and Gavin Johnston created Salt Spring Island Natural Cemetery. As current stewards of the land, their mission is to restore the forest to one of giant Douglas firs. Salt Spring is Canada's only public natural burial ground that stands alone in nature, not attached to a modern cemetery. In Ontario, some cemeteries have sectioned off a natural burial area, but we believe our province is capable of bigger, wilder possibilities. Expansive sites that protect Ontario's beauty and offer people a final resting place in nature. The Natural Burial Association, a non-profit organization independent of the funeral industry, aims to bring this option to Ontarians so we can choose to leave a legacy of nature. Please lend your voice, share this video, and follow us on social media.
So Bruce and I work on the nominations committee. Here's a nice video, kind of as a model. Just kidding, Bruce. Greenwashing. I think that as the recycling coordinator in the state of Minnesota, we continue to have a lot of this happening. People saying something's recyclable when it's actually not, or a product is misleading. Back to those burial pods. Nobody really dies in the fetal position. It'd be pretty hard to straighten you out, once you die, it's pretty hard to move your body. And they also talked about the depth. We don't want to feed wildlife, but we also don't want to go down too deep. We want to make sure we're in that layer where the microbes and the microleal? Myceliums? Yeah, those. Here's our biologist here. Can make sure that they can help with the decomposition of our bodies. So, yes. Oh, you haven't seen those? They kind of hang these pods where you're in it, and then they put you deep down into the ground. And I don't know, what's the pod made out of?
Yeah, it's organic. They're made out of organic. When they are going to be made, this is a dream that people promote on Facebook, kind of one of those things. But imagine a big pod, big enough to hold a body in fetal position. They would have to take a crane and lift it to get, or roll in a very undignified manner, a body into a hole. Anyway, it's an idea. It's a dream that is not feasible and not acceptable. Yeah. So we can put that one off to the side. We'll have other examples of greenwashing to share with you. Did you have, yeah? All right. So what we're going to talk about today, a really simple overview. Basically, there are two pathways for your body after you die. There is cremation, and there is burial. And within cremation, most of us think of flame-based cremation, right? Cremation by fire. There is also water-based cremation. Uses an alkali solution, warm water, and a little bit of gentle movement to reduce the soft tissue of your body. It leaves behind bone. So you basically have the same product from water cremation that you have from fire-based cremation. We're going to talk more about that. Conventional burial and natural burial. We have just a little special mention of whole body donation, right? Even if you donate your body, you have to do something with it, cremation or burial. And here in Minnesota, at the U of M or at the Rochester Mayo, you can be a body donor. That is your whole body, not organ donation like on your driver's license, but whole body donation, in which is used for medical or scientific research. So a couple of mentions about that. We're not going to talk about that a lot, maybe just a quick mention later. But it's awesome because your body becomes a donor teacher and serves the common good. There's typically no cost to the family, though there are a number of factors that make it so that it might not be possible for them to accept your body at the time of death, so you don't know. So one thing that we like to talk about is if this is something that you're interested in and would like to become a donor teacher, donate your body for science, then it's really important to have a plan B, because you don't know until the time of death whether the institution is going to be able to accept your body or not, okay?
I just went through this in Kansas, University of Kansas Medical Center, and you do know if you can meet the criteria, which is basically in a timely manner with the body.
Actually, it depends. If the cause of death could be a prohibitive factor.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is there is an expense if it's transportation, depending on how the state regulations, because in Kansas, morticians are the only ones who can transport bodies.
Well, okay, we could talk. Let's bundle those thoughts up, because here at the U, they pay for transportation. That's one of the awesome parts about it, that they really do cover the costs all the way up to a fire cremation, and we're in conversation with them about could you expand to include cremation by water. So I think what you're saying is, and what I take away as a really important point is, it depends where you die, because state regulations are different. So in Minnesota, we have some really actually progressive after-death care options. And in Minnesota, at the U of M, they will even accept your body for an unpreserved, and when I say that, an unembalmed experiment, or not experiment, shouldn't call it that, but research, right? But you can't know that until the time of your death. So plan B, all that to say plan B. So let's go on, because I would love to talk a little bit more about the difference between fire and water. So flame-based cremation takes lots of energy and puts lots of toxics into our air. So we're not, in terms of the earth, fire cremation is not our friend. We have better options. I mean, we could talk about all the yucky stuff that it puts into the air. Carbon dioxide, which we know exacerbates climate change. Sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide. It emits dioxins in this process. And if those of us who are a little bit older have mercury in our dental fillings, when that is exposed to intense heat, that mercury goes into our atmosphere, and then that's always there, circling around in our water. So we really are not big fans of that. But we know that cremation is a good option for many families because of our mobility and many different reasons. And so we turned your attention to alkaline hydrolysis, as it's called, because that is available. It's not legal in all states, again, to get Cynthia's point, like different states have different options. So in Minnesota and in 22 other states, water cremation is legal. It's an option here in the Twin Cities and in outstate Minnesota. I explained just a tish what that process is, and just to say the liquid that moves off of our body during this does not contain any DNA, and it's septic. It's treated before it goes back into the sewage system. So there's no risks or worries on that side of the conversation. Some people feel a real ick factor with water cremation. Some people feel kind of an ick factor with natural burial or with fire cremation. So we realize that we each have to come to this thoughtfully and in touch with our own experience and that of our circle of people who are going to help our body get where it needs to go after we die. In both cases, water and fire cremation, we're left with the same product, which is bones. That in both fire and water cremation, there's a machine called a cremulator that turns them into the product that we've come to know. And water cremation just uses much less energy. So consider that as you talk about it. Now, that's all having to do with our human response to it. But when we look at I can't remember, who's the person that gave the talk today? David, yeah. When he was speaking, he said that he took that quote and said, like, may we be able to live kinder. So my question in hearing that is, like, kinder to whom and to what, right? And I'm thinking, if we want to be kinder to the earth and consider what cremated remains bring to the earth, they are not friendly for plant life and for soil health. They are very high in sodium, and it's really, it's actually harmful to the plants and the soil when we put our cremated remains in. It's recommended that we bury and give them a space in the earth to turn into something that at least can mitigate their harm. And another great example of greenwashing, if any of you have ever Googled natural burial or green burial in the last, let's say, 2 years, you might come up with something called Better Place Forests. They are located out in Scandia here in Minnesota. It's an effort that comes out of California. And we would consider that an example of greenwashing, because they do not bury the cremated remains. They put them around the base of a tree, and they're just right on the surface of the earth. And a lot of the land is hilly, so it goes right down into the St. Croix watershed, which is a protected riverway here, a waterway here in our state. So think twice, be your good discerning consumers, whether we're talking about cremation options and what happens after, or burial. All right, and we can always take more questions after, but I'm going to turn it over to Jean to.
And I'm watching the clock, so I'm going to try and skip through or go a little bit quicker through some of these things, because I was managing the city of Bloomington cemetery, and I did not, and it's cemetery policy for maintenance of a cemetery to put these cement here so that the machinery and the can go over and not have dips, because we want things to look pristine. So that is why they use the cement vaults. Embalming fluid, we all know that started with Lincoln to bring him back, and that's kind of the boom of the funeral industry, because you have to pay somebody to embalm, and that was also the start of me again being involved with this, because seeing my brother at 50 years old embalmed it didn't look like my brother, and that just freaked me out. And so embalming is a cancer-causing thing for the people who are using it, so that's not really great. All the steel and wood for caskets. We toured a Jewish funeral home where they might have this beautiful one you can rent, but then they put you in a pine box and put you in the ground. I mean, like, this has been going on for many generations of Jewish, Muslim, the First Nation people. I mean, we have our mounds where they're buried.
Want to go forward to that one?
Sure. So, some of the, Yeah, the precious woods and the metals, and so natural burial. We try and call it natural burial versus green because there's many different shades of green. But natural burial would mean everything that goes into the ground can be decomposed. So I can keep as I'm trying to go through this. How are you doing that? Oh, there we go. Press down. So everything is biodegradable, and the earth, our bodies give back to the earth. So, sure, we can go through the different ones.
So Jean just put a lot into those like 2 minutes there, right? Yeah, she was talking fast. She was going to move us along. So we'll come back and gather more questions. At this point, I want to say a little bit. There's actually within the conversation of natural burial, many people don't realize, but there's different kinds of natural burial. So we have here in the Twin Cities what we call hybrid burial. They do conventional burials, that's with the embalming and the vaults and the big caskets, all that, and they offer natural burial. So the ones that we have now in the Twin Cities are these ones. So one in Brooklyn Center, that's certified by the Green Burial Council, and then 2 others that aren't certified. And what we bring up here is a hybrid cemetery will look like a conventional cemetery. Manicured grasses, the same care for the lawn that's there. Usually there's large headstones, could be flat. And there is no law in the United States that there has to be a vault in a cemetery. That is a procedure that the cemetery, that's a decision of each burial area. So we say, your people are buried at Roselawn or your people are buried at Lakewood. We'll ask and say, could I be buried without a vault? And some, was it you in the back?
No, Nick right here.
Where's Nick was saying that they required a vault. And that is true. Many cemeteries require vaults. Most conventional cemeteries require vaults because it's for lawn maintenance. Jean was showing all the things. You know, if you have a natural burial, there's going to be a little bit of settling. So you have to add some more soil. But so that's just something to remember. So really encourage you. Ask. You never know. Maybe a cemetery, a burial area will consider doing a natural burial. There's no law against it. We'll talk about that in just a minute, though. Something happened here in Minnesota. We also have what we call a natural burial area. And that is going to look more wild. That's going to be here in our Twin Cities. It'll probably be a mix of forest and tall grasses, prairie, and flowers. So there is one Green Burial Council certified natural burial area, and it happens to be in a Catholic cemetery over in Mendota Heights. We also have Prairie Oaks, which is not connected to any kind of faith community, and they are a natural burial area. Their land looks more wild. And they would be more tuned into what is happening to the earth in their burial area. Yeah, Diane.
What is the certification by the Green Burial?
It means that you have an outside organization that's watching to see how you are caring for the earth. Are you using chemicals on the earth, on the land, on the plants that are growing there? Do you have an integrated pest management plan? What are you doing to mark those graves? Are you using local stone or something that's biodegradable? Those kinds of things. And they have a whole process for certifying. So we do have these options. And again, put your really good consumer hat on when you're thinking about after death care, because not every natural burial area is managed well. So ask lots of questions, see how you feel, get the information that you need. Now what makes Jean and my heart beat fast is conservation burial, and we want to talk about that now, really focus on that. That is where there is a piece of land where we can bury our dead, and there is a conservation easement or a deed restriction on that piece of land, which will protect and restore it, and that commitment is held in perpetuity by an organization other than the people who run the burial area. Okay, we do not have this in Minnesota yet. There are more than 13 conservation burial areas across the country. Some states have multiple, so we think we're like falling behind the times here, and we can do better here in Minnesota. We have land, and we could conserve land and bury our dead in a way. Whoopsie. Let me come back to that, because there was a little clause there. Some of you may have heard and read in the papers here in Minnesota last year in the legislative session, they passed a moratorium on new natural burial areas. This was a conflict brewing in the northern counties between here and Duluth. It's really unfortunate, misinformed, not scientifically based, a lot of fear and neighbors not wanting a natural burial area to open. So we can talk about that more if it's something that you're thinking about or concerned about. People who are already doing natural burials can continue to do it. There is a 2-month study on the impact on the environment of natural burial in terms of, specifically, they talked about the risk of digging up animals and water health. So we can talk about that later if you want, but that is something that happened here, and it's very unfortunate and misinformed.
I wonder if some of that doesn't relate to the tax status that is given to conservation easements. I'm a volunteer for the Minnesota Land Trust.
Oh, cool.
And I know that land gets taxed as though the land value isn't diminished. And many areas of the state are opposed to the idea of easements.
Yeah, I wish it was as thoughtful as that. But it was not. It was not. And Gina and I would both really appreciate the chance to chat with you about that, because Minnesota Land Trust is the largest holder of easements in our state. And so they're really important here. And I'd love to learn more with you from your experience and kind of talk if you're willing to do that. Yeah. So I'm going to summarize really quick, but my mother-in-law lived at our house for 8 years, and she died in June. We cared for her through her death, and just really simply, she had a unique path of being a donor teacher at the U, having her body not embalmed. We took back control of her body from the U 30 days after, when the study was done. Her body was kept in a refrigerated room, and we were able to anoint her, bless her body when she came back to us with the family gathered, shroud her body, and she had a natural burial. That was her dream, so she got to do it all. She was a nurse. She really wanted to be a donor teacher, but she really wanted to have a natural burial too. So she had her cake and ate it too, as we say. Yeah. All right, Jean, is this where you kind of take up, or I'll do this one? So I already said what makes a conservation burial area different is there's an easement or a deed restriction, which then guarantees long-term stewardship of the land. A lot of times people want to know, like, how is a grave in a conservation burial area marked? Usually there's GPS, almost always. Could be a stone, could be a small metallic spike. Could be a piece of wood, like that's going to turn into earth again, those kinds of things. And let's see. Oh, conservation burial. The biggest thing for me, what makes me a fan of it, is like it kind of turns our after-death care conversations on their heads. It's not all about us anymore. We need to think about how we can partner with the earth and what is best for the earth and the creatures that live with us on this land. So kind of reshift our priorities here and our understandings.
I'm going to go over some of this after. Why don't we watch the video?
Yeah, I don't know if we can, but we can.
Oh,
we
we can
can
try.
try. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I can see if it'll go. But it was kind of in the land of spinning orbs.
This is a section from a PBS did. Ooh, it is. I just want this quote from Robin Wall Kimmer, Braiding Sweetgrass. We are dreaming of a time when the land might give thanks for the people. I just love that.
No, we we're trying to download it, and it's a intense clip. It comes from TBT. So I'm just gonna try this other version and see if that's.
It's yeah. We
It's on the resource list if you want it, yeah.
so over here we had people when they come in that they could sign up for that resource list that it would be on. We also do a quarterly newsletter. Shoot.
Yep, it's
That's
very tender and beautiful. This is what we were getting before, so.
So it's from Larkspur in
Larkspur?
in
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Both Ann and I have, when we've been traveling around the country, we've gone to visit one. I visited one where my brother lives in Pittsburgh, just outside of Pittsburgh. You visited one in Ohio, and they're just. You're taking a walk on the prairie, you're taking a walk in the woods. You are not walking in a cemetery. As much as I love Lakewood and I like walking around there, it feels so much different being in a place like this. And also I was I was privileged enough to be part of Ann's mother-in-law, Sally's natural burial. And that was at where? Resurrection,
Cemetery.
the Catholic.
Yeah, it's called Gates of Heaven, the little part. Yeah.
And they have a little section there. And it just, to have the people, I mean, you can't see the video here, but people are part of it. They are surrounded by nature and helping with this. Children often, sometimes you can dig the graves, sometimes they won't have you dig the graves, but often they'll have you at least put the dirt on the body. And that is so powerful. Give the kids a job. Oh my gosh, they love being able to do this. But it just feels like it's a tender. But when your people are participating, I think that you have that closure. It's better able to provide that closure for people, carrying them out to wherever. Did we mention that we know we can bury in the winter, right, by putting heating pads, or sometimes they'll dig some of them ahead of time or things like that? Yes?
Okay, I see that one body is shrouded in a blanket or something. Now, can you be buried in a cardboard box?
Sure. That's, I remember at First Universalist when Linda Berg's husband Jack had died. She had us come in and decorate a cardboard cough box. And had the kids be able to draw on it and things like that. So anything that could decompose in the ground. Some people use wicker baskets. Some people don't use anything at all. But the clothing would not be able to have any buttons or. Go ahead. What? Yep.
Okay, questions are great.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was going to ask too about family burial then too. So if someone can get in and be able to decide to do this, could then the family members, if they also wanted to decide, could that be prearranged too? Just questions.
Sure. So right now, our big plug is there's a newsletter you could sign up. We're looking for land. And we want to be able to find a place within driving distance of the Twin Cities. And so we don't have to go up to northern Minnesota because people want to still be able to visit it. We're looking for resources. Anybody have any gifts, legal or?
I'm going to move it to that screen so we can have that up there.
You can join our group. We have a lot of fun talking about death. What? No, we could talk about anything. Oh, shoot. Yeah. We have meetings monthly that you could come to and learn more about it. It's just, we're just really excited to be able to think of the possibility here. Yes?
Speaking of land, what would be involved in a burial on Ronnie's old farm?
Many of the what?
Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. Burial on your property. And it depends on the county you're in. Hennepin County, forget it. But if you're out in the country or whatever, as long as you're declaring where it is, and so that when you sell your land, somebody knows that it's there is the most important thing. But in the cities here proper, they don't they don't want that.
And we know that typically if you have one burial, then you're good to go. If you do two, then most places want you to declare it a family cemetery. Like, yeah. And that's how one of the natural burial areas actually got started in south of Madison, Wisconsin, Verona. One of the people who owned the land really wanted to get buried there, and then the partner also wanted to get buried there. So then they said, well, okay, I guess we're going to have to make it a thing, and they went through the process. Yeah, I know that happened. Yeah.
Did you say Verona or Viroqua?
Verona, but Viroqua, people are trying to get a hybrid cemetery going there too. Yeah, connected to a cemetery that already exists, but a natural burial area. Yeah.
So I have land in Cloquet,
Oh.
Minnesota,
Where? Sorry.
which is not where you want it
Yeah.
to be. But I've investigated it. We have 40 acres of the 80 would be a perfect site, but you have to have in perpetuity. You have to keep records. So
Yeah.
that's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you'd have to kind of connect with a mortuary or somebody that would do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
It just became overwhelming for one family to try
Yeah.
to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you're interested, I would be willing to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
My husband wants to have auger make family columns and have the bodies
Standing up?
standing up in the column. So just to say. that-
Yeah, like we said, yeah, everybody has different things that they dream about, So just like weigh out your options and then look at reality and think about the earth. Yeah. Cynthia, did you have a question?
So how would, you must be getting pushback from cemeteries because if you take a tour, which I have, of Lakewood, you come away with a very clear understanding that as soon as cremation became overwhelmingly popular, it breathed new life into cemeteries because they were not as restricted by their boundaries anymore because they could go up and, in many families it's the drawer where dad or grandpa is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine that you're not getting pushback. See, when you say there was the disagreement north of here about, I just wonder who came up with the objections of, because I'm paranoid. So if that works for me. And the tube thing is how they're doing it for couples in military cemeteries in this country.
Cremated remains
Yeah,
of
but it's-
partner
but
of.
it's a tube, so one person is here and one person is here.
Sure.
Yeah, which we had no end of humor about who was going to be. Gallows humor runs deep in my family.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of different things. And many of the restrictions in our country about how we do bury the dead has to do with really old English common law. About, like, for example, why is it that we have to only bury one person in one plot when after a certain amount of time, less than 100 years, that person is now one with the earth and they are no longer that, in their genetic, they're not there. They've turned into earth. And so it's an interesting thing, but that's all about our fear of talking about death too, and thinking about what happens, and who are we as humans, and who are we as partners, a partnership ethic of being with the land. Like, who are we anyway?
I just want to emphasize that also, like, think of in New Orleans, they have the above ground, and they scrape them out, and then they put another one in there. And as somebody who worked in garbage, my career, we have plenty of land to bury garbage. We have plenty of land to bury bodies. That's not the issue. It's really more about how we want to care for our bodies after death. And for me, I want to give back to the earth. It's given to me, and I want to give back to it. And there are many ways. This is one way. This conservation burial is now, I say thinking out of the box. It's not thinking out of the box. Like I said, Native Americans have been doing it for years. We have the St. Paul mounds that we look at, and we've destroyed mini mounds. We did an archaeological survey over in Belwyn Conservancy over in Afton to see if there were native bones there, and so that
And there were.
and there were. So they've been buried forever here, and
And our ancestors did it as well.
yes, exactly, right.
So we are open to any other questions. Anybody over on this side? Yeah, and I just wanted to put this QR code. If you're the type of person that wants to key it in on that, it will, all the images from our slideshow will come up. Not all the notes, but all the images will come up, and a resource list will come up for you. So if you're into that, go ahead. But otherwise, I'm thinking I might gonna send around the sign-up sheet. And if you want to receive a digital version of our newsletter, just one, and a resource list, just one, you can say, just send me that. We have a quarterly newsletter, and we could also, you could say, put me on the newsletter list, and you'll hear from us 4 times a year. Okay? So we promise that. We are an all-volunteer group. We can't do much more than that anyway. Yeah. Question in the back, and then up. Can I go to the back? Come right back. Mm-hmm. Oh, some cemeteries are embracing this as a way to actually accommodate and serve and make money, but also respond to the wishes of family as we grow in environmental consciousness and realize how bad our after-death, our traditional, conventional, let's say, practices are for the earth. So I would...
You want to mention the legislation that's coming on organics reduction?
Yeah, you do it.
Oh, well,
yeah.
So there'll be another piece of legislation, some of you heard organics reduction, where you're, it's a business venture, and they're going to make a lot of money, where they have a facility and you are buried or put in a container with like 3 yards of dirt, and you're composted, and and then they take that dirt out, and then you have to get rid of it. Well, or they will, but you're part of that dirt that was now. But it takes a lot of dirt, and it will cost a lot of money, and it's a money maker. So we're not thrilled about it. Just like the memorial forest where they spread the ashes around the tree, you're basically buying a tree, and so again, that's the greenwashing piece of it. So, but Nick, you had a question? If you get a permit for it, you can do it, right?
You mean cremated remains?
Oh, your body.
Well, you could think about how that would fit in with the earth, given we live in Minnesota.
Well, I'm talking about coastal
Yeah.
ocean.
People are intrigued by that, just like putting cremated remains on a fireworks and shooting it up into there, or putting it on a rocket. I mean, there's tons of options.
No, I mean something low carbon.
Well, except for getting it there. That's why people, like with the cremation, it's not a lot that's going into there, but there has been tons, again, in the garbage industry, tons of filters and requirements to put something on the incinerator in downtown Minneapolis to control what's released into the air. There's nothing for cremated remains. There are no regulations on what is going up into the air there. So, and besides just the energy it takes to burn, so mercury up in the air, but right, fossil fuels to. Yeah, we think so. Ann and I teach a class for Oli, if you've heard Ollie, for the University of Minnesota. Every year we go on tours out to Stillwater where they have one. And then we also go to Roselawn Cemetery, which have partnered. They're looking at natural burial area in their cemetery. And so we do a mock natural burial there as well as a class. So it's. Yes, so you can see the machine. You're not going to see a body go in there, but you're going to see the machine that they use, yeah.
Jean, where is the Minnesota funeral home industry in alignment with this? Because I think other states, they've been kind of the driver against natural burial. There are things that can take them out of the system
Oh, you're talking
from a money perspective.
in terms of. Yeah, like you're talking about like the funeral mortuary industry, right? Like
$1
that.
billion.
Yeah.
I mean, they bring a strong lobby when they decide to.
Yeah. So, yes, very powerful. Yes, there's been a lot of consumer action on this right now, even new trade commission regulations to require that every funeral home has their pricing transparently listed on their websites, because that's really hard to, it's hard for consumers to find that information. And I would say, just in the last months, leadership of the Green Burial Council, the certifying agents organization, interesting, they have funeral directors who are now kind of trying to educate other funeral directors on the possibilities for beautiful natural burial options. So recognizing that the conversation needs to shift. Like, we can't keep doing it how we've always done it. It demands of us changes, not just in our, where we shop and what we drive and how we plant our gardens and do our farming, but it demands us to consider what also do we do after we're done with our bodies here. So I think there's a recognition that something has changed, and yet we have found you can't say that universally, obviously, because there's money and there's survival, and it's hard. Funeral directors are one thing, cemeteries are another, right? They're not always hand in hand. Usually there's a partnership kind of that happens. Yeah. You all were kind of having a laugh over here. I'm curious, what are you thinking about? Do you have questions or wonderings? Yeah, I just wondered, I was curious, like. Uh-huh. Yeah. Right. And some funeral homes actually are green certified. They are, like, saying that they're going to they're going to have different practices. And a part of that is recognizing family empowerment. How healing. We haven't really talked about the impact of natural burial on healthy grief. To be able to walk this process with your loved one and be at graveside and see the beauty of that body returning to the earth, like Jean was saying. Like, when Sally died and we were able to bury her body naturally, it was so comforting for us. Like, it just meant the world to us, because we could gather around as family and sing and put put her favorite flowers on where she was buried and things like that. Go for a walk. We imagine not with big gravestones in a conservation burial area, but children being able to play, flowers growing, monarchs flying around, bees doing their job of pollinating and helping us be healthier, and we get to go for a walk. It looks like a nature preserve. That's one of actually the tensions with the conservation land, because many, like, hardcore, narrow-minded conservation groups say, no, we have to keep humans off the land because we're going to wreck it. We always do, right? And our thought is, like, gosh, what better way to connect humans to the earth than to have one of our loved ones buried in it? We're going to want to help protect that water and that land, So there's this emotional thing that I have, this connection about, like, it just, it helps us heal instead of denying, even after death, that someone is gone, their body is done now, So, yeah. Well, we say thanks, right? We say thank you. We're really sorry that it wasn't possible, but if you are a TPT member, you can find this on the TPT website. They have something called Real South. And it's this, and the really touching part that we were going to show is the last 4 minutes. It's a family burying their father on a piece of conservation land. And it is just beautiful. The family gathered around and the music and everything. So I'm sorry that we couldn't make the technology work on that front, but you can find it there. And yeah. And
as your part-time mentioning, right? I mean, could they make some money if they offered that as an option? I mean,
I would think so, and I can't imagine it's just not going to be inevitable.
maybe you could perhaps lead that effort or have us come in and talk to them about it.
Oh, they know.
They know.
Yeah, yeah. They know. They're, but yeah, I think the more.
One out in Stillwater that we go to that has, and now there are other cremation commercial ones that you can ask any funeral home to use, but you can't actually see it done. So.
Yeah, I mean, right here in South Minneapolis, Oak Hill, I don't think I said that out loud, but I've helped bury a person there, and they will do natural burial. That's right across from the big Bachmans on Lindale, it's before 62, so maybe 6,100 or 6,000, whatever, right there, right on the way down. So Gill Brothers is the funeral home there, and they very happily accommodated a natural burial and were very supportive. So some funeral homes, if it's something you're interested in, is more family-centered. Like, make sure you ask the funeral director, if you're using a funeral home, what might that look like? How can you support us in that way? So I think your questions, and I'm betting that Washburn-McGreevy would support a family. I don't know what their training and their tools are for that yet. Yeah. No, but I think they would, because I believe, I mean, most families choose to use funeral homes at some point along the way because of transportation. We have the legal right to transport a dead body as families, but not all families want to do that. Families want some support, and I think funeral directors they're the kind of person, who becomes a funeral director is usually somebody who really wants to help other people. So they want to. What was the term? I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? What is it that you're in your affirmations or aspirations, or in the vision, helping to serve one another? But there was helping others or something. There was a phrase. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we all have to question, what does that helping look like, right? Yeah. Is it so? If some of you want to see our fall newsletter, but you don't do email, or that's kind of not accessible to you, or you want to take a paper copy of a resource list, we did bring a few today. So I'll just put them